All right. Let's talk about whether or not you need certifications or degrees to get into game development. And the answer is no, you do not need them. There are other ways. And is it even that valuable to get? And sometimes yes, sometimes it is incredibly valuable. A lot of times no, not so much. And the biggest importance to this, to me, is understanding when to make that decision, why it's valuable in some cases and not others. And of course, this is all in my opinion. And one of the big reasons I'm posting this video is because Jason Wyman also posted one, and his video is great. It's 11 minutes long, talks about this, and he's got some great insight to add to this. And I recommend stop my video, go look in the description, click the link, watch Jason Wyman's, then come back to my video and get a different perspective on this, because I want to talk about when the certificates are specifically good. Like, when in your career should you get certificates? When in your career should you be getting a degree? And should you be getting one at all? So let's talk about this. Okay, first of all, both Jason and I were SMEs on the Unity Advanced Programming certification, and that was just winding up. And it kind of changed a lot of our perspectives on how certificates were done, because both of us have had experience in the past personally about either taking these certifications or using them, like actually getting a certification from someone else and understanding that it holds any meaning or value. So let's talk about this. A certificate. I'm going to bring up a very specific certificate, the Unity Certified Associate Programmer. Associate, like an associate's degree, like a 2-year degree. That's roughly what this is equivalent to, as if you had 2 years of experience working in Unity projects. Like, if you look at the description of it, it doesn't say 2 years, but it says like 2 to 3 semesters of post-secondary Unity classwork or equivalent, independent study, experience with a diverse range of projects, and then it lists off a whole bunch of different types of things. And this is to basically show that you can hit the ground running. That's what a certificate really should be doing, that you can hit the ground running. Most education should be teaching you how to hit the ground running, or be giving you profound insight to go beyond what the day-to-day task work is. Now, degrees will often do that, where certificates do not. But let's go a little farther into the certificates. Let's say a certificate like this one, if you have 2 years of experience where your day job has been like a junior programmer working on Unity stuff, you should be able to go take this and have a very strong likelihood of passing it. That's kind of who it's designed for. Someone who has about 2 years of experience, of course, with varying degrees of areas that they're focused on. If the entire time all you did was focus on enhancing a text console inside of it, making a very pretty 3D graphics one, then you're probably going to be limited. But most developers, most people who are developing with Unity take on a wide array of stuff that they try experimenting with. So you have about 2 years of experience, so you go take that certificate because you should be able to pass it about then. You go get that certificate. Now, what does that certificate mean? Well, it means that you've probably got about 2 years of experience, but your resume already shows it. Think about that. You've got about 2 years of experience doing this, which is about what it takes to get that certificate, to make it hold any meaning, but you already have it. So what is the point to it? It's like, yes, I can see on your resume you have 2 years of experience, and then you took a test that basically said that, yes, you've got about 2 years of experience or a value of that. It's not like it adds on to it. It doesn't append to it. If you have a whole bunch of these lined up, that can kind of look impressive because you have just this large variety of all these certificates. It proves that you're staying up to date. It doesn't mean that any one of those individually is all that necessarily valuable, but you are staying very well up to date on these things. And that's where the certificates show that you're up to date on things. That's a big thing. Like, the certificate is invalid after 2 years. Like, I got mine, I don't know how many years ago, but it's expired by now. Okay, so if you've already got the experience, why go out and get that? That doesn't really mean anything. When I was doing interviews on people, that's the same thing. It's like if they've already got the experience and they can show it on their resume through business experience, it doesn't mean anything to me that they've also got a certificate on top of that. The certificate shows me the same thing. It is nice to have the stamps, but it really doesn't pull that much into the presentation of it. So when is it valuable? Well, let's say that you're fresh out of college or fresh out of high school. That might be a better example. You're fresh out of high school and you haven't had a job doing this stuff yet. Nobody's hired you to develop in Unity or to make games or to work with 3D experiential technology in businesses. You have just been being a kid. You've been growing up. You've been going to school. You've still been learning, and maybe you've even done a lot of these projects. You have this own little thing where you haven't published a game, but you've got this inventory system you built up. You've got this system where you can make a little Mario-like character jump from one block to another. You've done a little racing simulation or some other things. You've got little personal things to show for this. But you don't feel like you can bring it into a resume. You don't feel like you can bring it into an interview. That is where a certificate validates things. A certificate, in my opinion, takes your personal experiences that you have done without the requirement of deadlines, without the requirement of a job, of a paycheck, of having those things tied together, that you have done these things, and now you've taken this test to prove that it actually means something. Now all those things can start coming into your resume. You can bring them in beforehand, but putting this there kind of validates them and validates the certificate. It's this win-win scenario. So you can validate about 2 years of your personal experience and start bringing all these little incomplete things, but you can still show, like, yes, I have a working inventory system here for an incomplete game. Yes, I have this thing where you're racing, but there's no levels here. It's only got this one little test thing where we're trying out how the vehicle spins around. But I was working on the vehicle physics, so I did some stuff there. You've got these talking points. You've got these points of expertise that you have been expanding on. And that's where a certificate really helps you. So where does that help you as a senior level, as an expert in programming? You're already an expert in C#, but now you're taking on Unity and you want to get into the game development industry. A certificate is a great way of showing that while you had skills in other areas that brought you to a senior level of understanding, the certificate proves that you carry that knowledge over, that experience over into the Unity world, or for certificates that you get in other places. Now, Unity has done a great job of making sure that they are validating these things, that they're coming up with great questions to really figure out, are you a senior level developer or are you a mid-level developer? What are questions that we can ask where the majority of senior level programmers would know, where mid-level programmers would likely not? And those are the types of things that we can really dive into and get a lot more clarity on. And they put a lot of work to make sure it's really great. So I trust their certifications really well. Plus, it's Unity certifications from Unity, like getting a Microsoft certification from Microsoft. Those hold a lot of meaning over going to a course from, say, Udemy. While Udemy courses, some of them I'm sure are absolutely incredible and great for giving you a head start, they're not necessarily going to hold as much clout in an interview. Not unless the person is also well-versed and experienced and understands how useful that particular certification is. Hello, Wesley. This is Wesley. Mario is the one who's usually on my shoulder, but Wesley likes to come up here too sometimes. I'm also working in my garage at the moment, which is why I have a coat on, because it's very cold in here. What? All right. So let's move on from this now. So to recap that one first, certificates are valid for a short period of time. Like, it helps provide meaning to something. If you have a whole bunch of them, the meaning that it's helping to provide, aside from those individual ones, is more focused around the fact that you are staying up to date. You are putting real energy and effort into making sure you're on top. Like, there's a certain thing where it's like, yes, you have experience, but then you've also taken a test to validate, and you've done the study work to make sure you're not missing things. That was one of the big things about the MCSE certifications, the Microsoft certifications. that it's really more of a way to say, like, how much am I missing? Like, you've been doing this for this amount of time, then you go take the MCSE and you figure out whether or not you're actually, all this stuff. And then you're suddenly realizing, like, wow, I've been doing .NET and I haven't even touched this part of it. Okay, so it helps you break into industries. That's where a certificate, in my opinion, is particularly valuable, where you are trying to take some of your personal experience that does not show up on a resume from a business source, and you are trying to say that this is valid, that this should be respected. And a certificate like the associate degree one is good for probably about 2 years of personal experience. Something more along the lines of the Unity Advanced Programmer certification, I don't remember it, but I think it was between like 5 and 7 years, and that will be kind of the validation that it gives you, that this person would be like hiring someone who's been working on this recently and for like the last 5 to 7 years. So that certificate is also pretty valuable. Okay, so now let's go into colleges. Colleges are dying. The way that they're doing things for technology, at least, is seriously outdated. And it's not exactly the college's fault, but I don't know very many colleges that are fighting this to make it better. So let's talk about this for a second. Colleges have to get accredited. And I suppose I should give you this caveat. First off, I did not attend college as a student. I do not have a degree. So why listen to me about this at all? So I'll give you a little bit of background. One is I've taught at multiple colleges. I've written a book that has been taught at colleges. I am currently an advisor to one college. I have been an advisor to another college. I have helped redesign courses at another college. I have interviewed and hired well over 100 people by this point. And going into it, having a good understanding of their background, their experience, who they are as a developer, at least as they express it, how their resume presents their educational background and personal experience. And so I had eyes on all of this for years. And so I can speak to a lot of that stuff. Plus just working with others in general, that I know some of their backgrounds, like from college, from other things. And there are some areas where some people excel better and areas where other people don't. So let's talk about this really big statement that colleges are dying. So think about the technology. Like Unity comes out with significant upgrades every year, usually multiple times a year, where they change some of their architecture, they drop parts of their architecture, they add new features, not just new features, but new significant ways of doing things like dots or the new network gaming services or whatever other system you might be looking at inside of Unity. Just staying up to date with Unity is a lot of work. So if somebody came in and said, yes, I've been working with Unity for a few years, but I haven't worked with them in the last year, or I haven't worked with them in the last 3 years. Think of that from an employer standpoint of, okay, so obviously you're going to have to get caught up. So you have some experience, you understand some of the domain knowledge, but you're out of the current. You don't necessarily know how things run best right now. And you'll definitely need some learning. Plus, you're going to have to learn how things specifically operate here. So that weighs against you when you're doing this stuff. Now, think about this for a second. Accrediting a college. This is an area that I have a strong opposition against, a very strong bias against. And let me give you some reasons why. First off, it's long and expensive. Think about it, it's like a year. If you want to get a course accredited, then it's going to be about 9 months to a year to actually get it all the way through the accreditation process. And that validates things about what people are learning in it, that they're actually doing stuff. So there's really good reason to have it. It's just no longer the right way to do things. And I don't know what the right answer is for this part. It's hard to define. The accreditation was there to basically verify that this place, these people who bought this building or rented this building and taught some people some stuff and then gave them a piece of paper at the end that say, well, great, congratulations. Now you know C++. Now you know C#. Now you know Unity. Now you know how to create a building or architect a building. That it actually holds weight, that it has any meaning to it. The accreditation process is intended to make sure that when people are purchasing their education, that it actually means something. Now, the problem is that in the technology industry, that it, by nature of the accreditation process, can no longer be valid. And that's the hardest part about it, is the fact that its specific goal is the thing that it's specifically designed not to allow. Now, the technology industry is really the biggest player in what makes that change, because that has changed so much. Now, of course, technology affects almost all of the industries, so it has a lot of effect in these other places too. But let's talk about this in specific. Colleges are dying. Why? The accreditation process. In order to be accredited college, for the degree to mean anything, the college has to be accredited. To be accredited, aside from some other various processes, the individual courses, like 90% or more, have to be accredited. So that means each one of those courses has to have gone through this process that can take a year, 9 months to a year, just to get validated. And it's expensive, so this is not something colleges want to do every year. Okay, so that means the technology that you are learning inside of that course is outdated by typically a year at least. And then they're not updating this every year, so that's very easily 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years behind on technology. And yes, that's a real number. I'm not just making that up. There are courses. I remember seeing a course in when was this? 2011, 2012, where they were teaching Flash as part of their advanced web curriculum at a college. This was accredited. But that wasn't even, you couldn't even do that if you were bringing in a current Mac laptop. You could not run it because the technology was outdated, that nobody used it anymore. Like, some places used it. People would hack their browsers, re-enable some of the unsupported features to keep it going, just because some of the little games or apps that they were using on it were useful. But it was outdated, severely outdated. Some systems, they weren't supporting anymore. They weren't even having it enabled so a typical user could make a site or a Flash system work. But yet some colleges were still pushing that as hey, come learn this. This is our web stuff. And if you didn't know any better, which would be kind of hard if you're learning all this other stuff about tech, that you're looking at the college, they're teaching you this stuff that's advanced. Anyway, I'm starting to go out on a tangent on this, and I'm going to try to roll this back in. Okay, so colleges are particularly good at stuff where things don't change much. So patterns and principles. Patterns and principles can apply to a lot of languages. Like, object-oriented patterns and principles can apply to any object-oriented language with little difference. And so you can take a course on that, and that could be, there's books that came out on that in 1998 that are still valid today. Aside from maybe a few shifts, static or singletons. The singleton system is in most places usually not trusted anymore. It's not a testable system. It's not easily testable anyway. There are hacks you can apply, but in general there are much better ways than using singletons to do stuff. But yet a lot of places still use it, and colleges will still teach it, and books will still teach it. So you have this technology, you have this stuff, and now tie that back in with, I'm interviewing to get a job with Unity, to go get a job doing Unity work, programming. And I have a college degree. I have 4 years of college, and a lot of that was focused on Unity development. That sounds awesome, doesn't it? That's okay, you just got out of college. You were learning this stuff in college, but wait. Oh, that stuff that you were learning on is 4 years old. You were learning on Unity 5.5? We're on Unity 2020. That's for LTS, not even their current version. Okay, so you are behind the curve in most cases coming out of colleges. And that is just the way it is designed. Colleges can try to fight it. Accreditation places have a lot of things saying like, well, this is how it's been. We're the ones who are deciding and dictating how this works. So they have a lot of clout with the law as well to actually say whether or not education means something. And there's also this romanticized value of it that people, and as a society in the US, we carry saying, get a college degree, that'll help you get a better life. A college degree from an online place doesn't mean as much. A college degree, the colleges are doing their best to make sure that you're going to learn the most current and valuable stuff. Except almost every single person that I have ever interviewed who came fresh out of college, even when they were studying the exact things we were doing, was never knowledgeable enough to hit the ground running. Never. That was one of those things that was just always missing. But then you get someone who did not go to college for it, who comes in and they were just doing this stuff on their own. They were setting up network servers. They were trying to run a web hosting service out of their bedroom in their parents' house. They know more about web technology that is useful to the companies in most cases than the people coming out with a degree in that specific topic. So colleges can do well. They can do well. But it is unlikely because it is difficult and expensive, and most colleges don't want to spend that much money to make sure that they are keeping current on technology. That right there is just that statement that the colleges don't want to spend the money. These expensive courses don't want to spend the money to make sure that they can keep up to date with what's needed. And there's kind of a reason that they don't. And that's because, well, if we do, we're already going to be a year behind anyway, right? So what's the difference between another 2 years? And they're already justifying this stuff. And so it becomes harder and harder to justify internally that it's valid to even update these things. But places do this. They'll add little mini things all the time. As long as they're keeping like 10 to 15%, like 90% of the course the same, most accreditation allows the course to still continue. But we're talking about significant updates and changes happening all the time that don't usually fit into that. Okay, so college degrees, when are they useful? Let's get to the real meat of that. They're most useful right at the beginning. And they are most useful when you don't already have a bunch of people and opportunities to dive into a technology. You are going to put yourself in debt over this. You are going to put yourself in debt over it. Whereas what I've seen, this is what I've seen. And I haven't seen charts on this. I don't know if this is like what the numbers look like on a large scale. I'd love to see it. But you take a person who has been out in the industry for 4 years, and you take someone with a 4-year degree. The person with 4 years experience will usually be able to hit the ground running, and that is a major hiring bonus right there. That is a major reason to hire someone. A person who has the 4 years college will likely have some retraining to go through. There are some valuable things like Big O notation and the patterns and principles, because when you're learning on your own and you've already got a solution for something, why study and practice another way to solve it when you've already got one that works? So the people who are learning on their own are often stuck within that realm, and that is a weakness. But it's also one that is not necessarily recognized that well, and you can also push past it. You can go learn Big O notation. You can go learn patterns and principles. You can go study alternative approaches. Anytime somebody else shows you a different way, study it. Listen intently to figure out how their approach works, as well as yours. And go research other ones every now and then to see what other ways are there to deal with this. Post questions online about what framework would you use to solve blah and express a problem on either Stack or, I hate Stack Overflow, but any other technology form. All right. Yeah, that's it.